guys, Midnight Strike here, bringing you guys another classic review, and today we're going to be talking about a very classic video game from the golden age of arcade games. Prehistoric era of gaming, practically, before NES. It's really old. That's basically the point that I want to come across. And back in those days, Atari ports really were not that good. But this one stands out. If you know me, you'll know that I heavily criticize, heavily dislike the Atari 2600. It almost doomed gaming forever. It's one of the worst systems out there, practically. Not because of its quality graphics, not because of anything else, but because of the games, because of the gameplay. And you know what? I know it had to start somewhere, but look at E.T. There were a lot of better games than E.T., like this one, for example, Asteroids. And I'm going to start off by saying the gameplay, it's pretty repetitive, but you know what? It's meant for competition, as most games were. It's meant basically to switch off between players and have you compete to see who can get the higher score. And you know, I was playing it for a little while. I've actually played multiple variations of this, including the arcade version, because you know they have all those games online now. And I gotta say, you know, aside from the stiff controls on the Atari 2600 version, I actually prefer the Atari 2600, even though I don't really like the system that much. So moreover, the graphics in the arcade version are just kind of bland. They are just like an outline, a white outline with black filler, and the space is black, so it's outline basically. Whereas the Atari 2600 actually fills that in and colors it, so it has color graphics, but in the downside to that is they take out the little mini UFO spaceship that's trying to kill you by shooting at you, so there's a little bit less variety in gameplay, but that's a lot of things for the Atari to handle, and I believe that it really couldn't handle that much, so I actually prefer the Atari version, but, you know, I do miss the little UFO that comes in and tries to kill you every now and then. That just added a lot of varied gameplay a little bit in terms of that. What would have been really cool is if they could have handled it at the time, I'm not sure, but they could have done a different system where, like, you get different weapons, make it a little bit more varied, a little bit more fun. But overall, the Atari version has a little bit stiffer controls, but it basically does the same thing. There's this really cool thing where you press down on the joystick and you can teleport. Basically, it's like a tank control movement, and usually I hate tank controls, but for this game it actually works, just like it does for Silent Hill. But for this one, it actually works because when you press down, it'll actually teleport you somewhere, so you can use it if an asteroid is coming and you have nowhere to go. You can't get out of the way in time because the controls are stiff. But this is in the arcade version too. You can press down and transport to safety. But the downside to that is sometimes it doesn't transport you to safety. Sometimes it transports you right in the middle of oncoming asteroids, and bam, you're dead. Your high score has gone to waste. So, yeah. Basically, graphics are good. Sound, even though the Atari 2600 has shit sound, everyone knows that. This one actually it has its own little gimmick. It has its own little appeal, this retro appeal, especially the sound of shooting. Every time you press the fire button and you just fire, it has a lot of power behind it. It just packs a punch. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me, but I like those retro sounds, those retro noises. Not so much for it sounds like footsteps, but like a loud buzz, kind of like that Atari 2600 is famous for. It didn't have very many sound variations when it came to that, and very rarely did you ever have background music. But this game actually has some pretty appealing sound to it, especially the firing of the guns, as I said. So, decent shooter, and it still kind of holds up, especially since there is a Xbox 360 version of it nowadays for Asteroids, I think HD or something like that, and it was released on the 64. I haven't played the N64 or the 360 version, but I've played a bunch of Flash games for it, so it's pretty fun, especially the newer ones. I don't know, I still prefer the Atari one, which is surprising coming from me, but overall, Asteroids, it's alright. I mean, not the greatest thing. It kind of gets old after like 5 minutes, but it's really interesting to see where video games actually came from. So overall, I'm probably going to have to rate Asteroids like 6 or 7 out of 10. It's not the best thing ever, but it really this is where video games came from, and it would be unfair to compare it to a modern video game or even something as new as Zelda or Mario or Metroid. But I can compare it to its arcade counterpart, and I don't know, they're basically the same except for Atari has stiffer controls and the arcade version has the little UFO thing. So yeah, that is Asteroids, and I'll probably leave a link. There's actually a bunch of websites that host Asteroids for like built-in Atari emulators, and it's really cool. That's how I played it. So yeah, check it out in your spare time if you got like 5 minutes to kill. So let's see, 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10, yeah. This is Midnight Strike 3625. Thank you very much for watching. Keep calm and rock on.